Welcome to Treadmill Talks, where I'm going to share some valuable insights how you can get more out of your training programs and your silly nerdy hobbies, and all you have to do in return is put up with me being a sweaty mess on a treadmill and put up with the fact that things are going to get a bit awkward because I'm breathing a bit heavily at the end of my sentences. If that sounds like a fair deal and you're going to hang around, I don't blame you if you're not going to, then today's topic are the 3 cardio considerations I would consider for heavier folk. Because what I notice online is that a lot of the tips around conditioning, intervals, cardio seem to be geared towards the sort of guys who are happy to sprint around a high rocks with their top off. The sort of guys that resemble Legolas when they run, and not so much Gimli. Whereas I myself have always identified with Gimli's feelings when he's running or jogging or sprinting. And so whether you are a heavier person because you've done a lot of bodybuilding or powerlifting and you've got a load of muscle tissue, or you're a heavier person because you're carrying a bit too much fat right now, maybe a combination of both, these are the tips that I would give you to help you get more out of your conditioning. Because like I said, so much out there is geared towards those who are on the lighter side of things and are suited already towards those sorts of programs. So let's kick things off. I've got some notes on my tablet here. I've got my heart rate monitor and I've got the monitor because my son's napping at the moment, hence why I have to train and record content. The first consideration is to prioritize off-feet conditioning. It's a fancy way of saying less running. That's not because running is bad for you, but there is a lot of impact involved, especially if you are heavier. Every time your foot strikes the ground when you are jogging or running, multiples of your body weight are effectively going through your muscles, your joints, your ligaments, your tendons. And so if you're on the heavier side of things, that is going to be a lot more fatiguing than someone who is lighter. I'm 115 kilos most days. It is a lot more force that I experience on a 5K run than someone who is 60 or 70 kilos. And so the first thing I would recommend you do is prioritize off-feet conditioning methods. Assault bike, rowing machine, ski erg, incline walking. And if you're going to do running, do less overall volume. So if you're following a running training plan, a generic one online, that's going to really suit someone who is 50, 60, 70 kilos. If you're 100 kilos plus, it's going to be a lot more challenging and a lot more fatiguing, and you're probably initially at least more likely to experience sore Achilles, sore knees, sore joints, all that sort of stuff. So if you are going to do the running side of things, which I encourage you to do still, taper the volume back. You could do less overall volume, run shorter distances, or you can just add in more running. If you're going to run a 5K, you don't have to run it flat. You could run a minute and walk a minute. Your heart rate's still going to go up. You're still going to get the benefits of that cardiovascular exercise, but you're going to spend half the time going through those impacts. And then all you gradually do is you just build it up. But I would say a 30-70 split, running to off-feet conditioning to start with, and then over time, as your body adapts, you can then move closer to 50-50 or just do more running. But to start with, bear in mind that a lot of marathon training plans, 5K training plans, high rocks and CrossFit training plans are geared towards those who are lighter and smaller. So they are experiencing a lot less impact. The second thing, polarize your training. Again, high rock simulations, Metcons, CrossFit WODs, they kind of occupy this really tough middle ground where you're doing a lot of very tough exercise for a pretty decent chunk of time, and there's nothing wrong with that. But as a heavier individual, you are probably going to get less benefit because the quality of your work is going to suffer very, very quickly because you're heavier, because you're not as fit, because you're carrying more muscle mass. So polarize your training. Do what I'm doing right now, low intensity cardio for a longer period of time. Yes, it's more time consuming, but it's hugely beneficial and it's going to cost you less. It's not going to interfere so much with your strength training, your bodybuilding, your powerlifting, your resistance training, whatever it is you're doing. On the other end of things, do high intensity work, 5, 10, 15 seconds, max effort. You're going to enjoy that because it's going to play into your strengths, i.e. your size and strength. On an assault bike, your outputs are going to be much higher. You're going to put out thousands of watts. Then you're going to take a good few minutes rest. And again, part of the reason you're going to do this is because it's going to allow you to keep the quality of work high. Over time, you can then adjust that. You can progress that, just like we spoke about the running. So that might mean that with the low intensity work, you gradually increase the speed or the pace, but still are able to put out that continuous output. With the high intensity work, it might mean that you increase the length of the work intervals, or you decrease the length of the rest intervals, or a bit of both. again, bear in mind that a lot of those CrossFit Metcons, WODs, high rock simulation classes, they are more suited towards individuals who are 60, 70, 80 kilos, you know? And if you are pushing triple figures in kilos, it's going to be more challenging to start with. That doesn't mean don't do them, but it just means bear that in mind and prioritize, to begin with, that high-low approach. Keep your highs high and your lows low, because medium only works in t-shirts. I didn't make that up, I stole that years ago. The third thing to consider is vary up the method you're using within a training session. Lots of hand gestures going on this afternoon. So one thing that I noticed with a lot of heavier guys, or heavier individuals, is that their muscles will start to occlude much quicker. It's a very fancy way of saying you're going to get a muscle pump doing cardiovascular work. That might be because you've got loads of muscle and you're used to occluding it. I'm thinking like bodybuilders, if you do like a long set of leg extensions, you are, 15, 20 reps, you're basically keeping that muscle under tension the whole time. And so you are limiting the amount of blood flow in and out of that muscle, which is great from a bodybuilding perspective. But if you aren't good at relaxing those muscle groups and using them efficiently during cardiovascular exercise, then chances are it's going to be a wicked quad pump that gets you to the end of that, or that forces you to stop that session, rather than it being your lungs or your cardiovascular system that's taking the brunt of the work. It might be that because you are heavier, you just get a wicked lower back pump doing certain forms of exercise, like using a rowing machine. So that's why I recommend varying up the kit that you're using. If you can do an hour on a bike, that's fine, crack on. But if you find that your quads are the limiting factor, have something else to jump on after 15 minutes. Your heart rate is going to stay elevated. Your cardiovascular system is still going to be working really hard. It's just going to allow your quads to get a bit of a break, to recover a bit, and put the emphasis elsewhere. I always think about when I first started using a ski erg. The first few times I used it, my triceps just blew up. It felt like I was doing a load of tricep extensions. And that was because, number one, I wasn't particularly efficient at the movement. Like, my skill wasn't there. So I was relying on my triceps. But second of all, I just wasn't used to using my upper body in that way. I'd done a lot of biking, I'd done a lot of running, I'd even used a rowing machine, but my tricep muscles had never been worked in that continuous fashion. And so they just blew up. It was a huge tricep pump. So what I would do is 5 minutes of ski erg, 5-10 minutes of bike, 5 minutes of ski erg, 5-10 minutes of bike. You get my point. And that allowed me to keep the quality of work high. It allowed me to work on my efficiency and not just have to bail on the workout, because I ended up getting a serious tricep pump. And that's it. That's as simple as it is to start with. 3 things. If you are struggling with your conditioning, or you want to add it in, and you're on the heavier side of things, off-feet conditioning is going to be absolutely king to start with, or at least be conservative with your running volume. Number 2, polarize your training. Keep your highs high and your lows low. And number 3, be prepared to vary the equipment you are using based upon how you're feeling during that session. If your quads blow up, get off the bike. If your back blows up, get off the row machine. If your triceps blow up, get off the ski erg. You can always go back to it, but the goal is to keep the quality of work high and sustain it for a long enough period of time to stimulate your cardiovascular system, to challenge it. That's it. You don't need to worry about heart rates right now. You don't need to worry about specific times and training splits and intensities and intervals. We want to talk about big picture principles. We want to talk about how we approach training. The nitty-gritty details, the splitting of hairs, the specific individualization of training programs, it's a topic for another day. Because if you don't get this stuff right, none of the other stuff matters. And that's it for today's video. I'm not even sure how long that is, because the first time I tried to record it, there was something wrong with the microphones, so it was completely silent. So this might be 5 minutes, it might be 10 minutes, who knows at this stage. Hopefully you found it valuable. If you did, all that normal good stuff, like, comment, share, subscribe, follow, whatever it is on here, and I'll see you on the next video.